Well, hello everyone. This is Carrie Beck with How to Homeschool My Child, and I am here today to talk to you in my comfy clothes. I'm still in my walking clothes, but I'm here to talk to you about Christmas math. We talked a couple weeks ago about Christmas science. I think I've talked about Christmas writing. I've given you lots of ideas for reading books and history with Christmas around the world. But today we're going to center in on some math activities. So let's get started, and this will be a lot of fun. The first one to me that is super obvious is just baking. Baking has so many things you can do, and your preschoolers can help if you have to count the eggs that you're putting in or count the cups of sugar that you're putting in. They don't have to actually measure, but counting can start with the little kids. The other thing you can do is you can introduce the different types of measurement. We've got a 2-cup measurement here. I've got the 1 cup, and you can actually look. Let's see if I can show it to you. You can see the lines on the inside for measuring here. You can talk about tablespoons and teaspoons. There's all sorts of things you can do just to teach them that. You can also start to teach them fractions, because you can talk about 1 cup, a half a cup. I mean, that's 2/3, 1/3. I don't even know my own. 3/4, half, and a quarter. So you can use that and start to teach fractions. Now, you may not be able to completely teach them fractions here. You might have to actually get some cookie dough and roll it into a circle and cut it into fourths and let them see that. And then they can eat the cookie dough afterwards. How fun could that be? Another way that you can use baking is to talk about, oh, you know what, we have so many people coming. We have so many friends we have to give cookies to. We need to double this recipe. We need to learn to multiply times 2. That might be multiplying 2 cups of flour times 2 is 4, but it may be a half a teaspoon of baking soda times 2. That means multiplying fractions. How do we get that? That turns into 1. So those are some simple ways that you could use baking. The other thing I like about baking is science. You can also introduce science in your baking, and you can talk about physical changes and chemical changes. When we bake cookies, we take flour and sugar and eggs and whatever else you're putting in there, butter. Is it a physical change, or does it completely change the component of what these items are? If it completely changes what a component is, it becomes a chemical change. So you could talk about science in your baking. Or you could even talk about, like, I made Chex Mix last night. Is Chex Mix, when I mix it all together and combine it, is that a physical change or is that a chemical change? Has it changed chemically? So that's science. We're not talking about science, but I just thought I'd throw that in there. All right, the next thing is money management. One thing we did for our family, even when my kids were too little to make money, I didn't bring it, but I would give them a little Ziploc, and it had their money for their 4 gifts they had to buy, and I would still keep them at a $10 budget if I had kids right now. $10 per child. If you have a large family, I would do Secret Santas and let them choose names. But they can they had their list of what they were going to buy. They had to budget. They had to learn about taxes and all of those kinds of things. So there's one thing. They also had to learn to make choices. And I had one child that wasn't very good at making choices, but this really helped them have to make choices about what they wanted to buy. If I had older kids, I would introduce the concept of debit and credit cards. I would even open a bank account for them and let them do that. And you journey with them, because let's face it, our kids get out in the world and they don't, a lot of them, I know, because Texas A&M University is right over there, and they don't know how to manage their money. And we had there's a joke, and I can't even remember what it is, but it's like they just assume if they could write a check back in the day, they had money in their account. It's sort of the same thing. As long as I can use a credit card, I can keep buying and spending. We need to teach our kids money management, and Christmas is a great time. If your kids are older, they should be earning some money of their own, and then they need to learn to budget it. If you have a debit card, then you can teach them how to go online banking, and how do we reconcile that bank account at the end of the month after you've spent the money on your Christmas gifts. But with a debit card, and that's what we had our kids have debit cards in high school, because then they learned that if there wasn't any money in their bank account, they couldn't use it or it would not go through. And so they learn online banking skills. They learn money management. Now they all have credit cards now and use them, but I don't know. I would assume they still have debit cards. I have a debit card. I have 2 credit cards as well. So I think money is one of the best things you can teach your kids and use those money management skills at Christmas time. Another one is gift wrapping. So I wrapped some gifts last night and I thought this is really sort of cool. So here's one of my gifts. What is the surface area of this gift and how much wrapping paper do I need? Now, normally, you just roll it out and you cut it, but this would be a math activity. Here's one gift. Here's another gift. What's the difference in the surface area and why? Do they have the same height? If they do, then what makes them have different surface areas? So you could do some fun things like that as well. That's one. Okay, gift wrapping. Okay, the next thing is counting. We talked about older kids, money management. Let's talk about some younger kids. We can count down to Christmas. If you have an advent calendar, you might be doing that already. You can teach your kids how to use a calendar, how to look at what day of the week Christmas is on and Christmas Eve and how many more days we have, how many days are in a week. How many lights are on a string? So here's what I did. I grabbed a string of lights that I'm not using, and your kids, I wouldn't have it on, but they could actually they could go and count. The other thing is you could help them, and they could count, and they could graph how many green lights on this strand, how many blue lights, how many orange lights. This one isn't working. How many are working, and how many are not? Because if you look at this strand, it's a long strand. We got a bunch of working ones, but the reason I'm not using it is then we get to the section of ones that aren't working. And so you could look at that and you could take a fraction. Are they all working? This one isn't working. And so you could count how many are working, how many are not working, and actually get the percentage if you wanted to involve your older kids. So counting lights would be a fun thing. Now little kids, we're having Christmas dinner in our house. How many forks do we need? And let them go count the forks and then go put them at the place settings. How many knives? How many serving spoons? So there's a lot of things you could do with counting as well. Christmas cards. Christmas cards, if you send Christmas cards, you are going to count your cards, and then how much money do we need to buy the stamps that we need to send them? How much did the Christmas cards cost? We buy a box of them, and you probably ordered them online, but if you did, how much per card did it cost? If I spent $20 and I got only 15 cards, how much did that cost? That would be some division problems as well. So we can use multiplication and division in there. Now, this one I love, and I wished I had a little more time and had thought through a little more, but graphing. Okay, so last night I was graphing, and I have this big thing of bows. So you could have your kids count the bows, and they could find out how many of each color. But then wouldn't it be fun to lay out a graph on the floor, in your kitchen floor, and maybe just use painter's tape and make lines. And then you say, this column is our red ones. And so if this was the floor, you could have your kids line up all the red ones. And then the next column could be the green ones. And then you would make a bar graph of all the bows that you have. And then you could count them again. And you could compare. And you could see how many more green ones than red ones or whatever color. We got a whole bunch of this color. I guess I didn't really like that color for some reason. Or maybe it was just too dark and I didn't use them. But that's sort of a fun thing. You could do this after Christmas because let's face it, if you don't need any bows now, I probably spent less than $1 on this thing of bows because I bought it after Christmas one year. So, well, thank you, Jessica. Good ideas. These are just fun ideas. Now, the last one, as I was walking in here from the kitchen, I spied my little Santa mug, and inside my mug are Christmas Reese's. And so that would be another thing. You could count how many there are altogether. You could count how many green ones, how many red ones. You could take a piece of paper, and I don't have a plain piece of paper, but you could take it, and I'll try to maybe make a printable and just draw lines and let your child find the red ones. Let's see if I can do it a little higher. We'll go down instead of up. So we've got here are some red ones, and they could line it up, and you could end up making a bar graph, and then you can compare how many are in each one. I think we have red, green, and gold in this package. So that'd be a fun thing, and then let them eat one if you want. I don't know if you're a candy person. Some people are anti-sugar. Not me. So anyway, that would be a fun thing too. You could use, I was like asking my son, Hunter just got here last night from Ecuador, been so much fun. But anyway, I was like, what other Christmas candy do we have in the house that we could tie into math? Anyway, so that would be a fun idea. I have a free Christmas unit study that you probably already have, but I'm just throwing it out there, and I will put a link to it. But it has a whole section on math. It has some ideas for reading. It has some writing and history ideas, completely free until the end of the month. And so go ahead and we'll grab it. I forgot to put the link here in the description. If you have any other Christmas math ideas, please share them. That's what we're here for. We are here to help each other and share ideas as well. Now, if you missed yesterday I did 2 videos. I did one on, the nativity, and I showed you the candy nativity, and then I sent you a link to all the directions. And then I did a part 2 for joy. This week in Advent is joy. And so on Tuesday, I talked about joy, and I talked about the shepherds being afraid and then going to worship Jesus and having joy and then praising God. And then yesterday I did part 2 on joy, and I talked about God rest ye merry gentlemen, let nothing you dismay. And we are in a world today of dismay, and a lot of that dismay comes from us, from our sins, our fear. And so and then it goes on to talk about Christ was born on Christmas Day to save us from our sins and how we can have joy. And the chorus of that is something about, I can't remember, tidings and great joy. And if I were not standing in front of a camera, I would remember it because I love that song. Anyway, go watch that video. It's got some good ideas as well. Next week, I will probably only do 1 or 2 next week. Our Advent theme is love. I will be talking about that maybe on Monday this time because Hunter's here tomorrow. Gentry and her family come. We go to my parents, and then next week, everyone's here for a few days. So more than likely, it will probably involve grandkids too. Maybe, you never know. But I'll talk about love, and I'm going to talk about Epiphany, the day of Epiphany. I may even do that after Christmas. The day of Epiphany is the day we celebrate the wise men on January 6th, and I'll also talk about the 12 days of Christmas, which start on December 25th and go to January 6th, and I'll talk a little bit more about the meaning of that and how there really is a Christian meaning. So that's what you have to look forward to for next week. Y'all have been so supportive. I hope each of these short videos have been encouraging to you. Thanks for spending time with me. Oh, watch your email tomorrow. I have a even bigger surprise than what I had earlier this week. So watch your email. I've got something. It's a secret. I can't tell you anything about it till tomorrow. I am Carrie Beck with How to Homeschool My Child. Y'all have a great day and a Merry Christmas.